Hello, we're going to slowly step from programming to data structures. So before we get into data structures, let's try to understand programs and computers. As you know, computers are one of the greatest inventions of humans, right? So it can do maybe after aeroplane. It can do extremely complex things. As a programmer, you can program the computers to do extremely complex things. So there are, what are the examples? Like, you can check whether two DNA sequences are the same. So DNA sequences are huge things, data. So we can check whether two DNA sequences are the same or how much they are different. It's used in, it has many applications. For example, in investigations, crime investigations. Now it's used in satellite launches. It's used in aeroplanes, trains. Now you have autonomous trains, cars, etc. So that's the simple point I'm trying to make is computers can do extremely complex things, and it can be made to do extremely complex things, and programmers like you and me, people like us, can write programs which can do all these things. That's the power of computers. So so in one sense, we have now, in our possession, we have one of the most powerful technological instrument made by humans. Okay, now we want to make use of that, right? So that's one of our aim. Now, and a good thing about computers is that it's kind of area agnostic. What do I mean by that? If you have a computer, you can actually go and work in, let's say, biology. You can do things in biology. You can use a computer to simulate things in biology or solve problems in biology. You can go and work in areas which looks at satellite data, which traditionally were looked by remote sensing people. So you can go and do that. A computer scientist can do that. You can model mechanical tools using computers. So in some sense, computers can, they are ubiquitous. Computers can go into any area. As computer programmers, you can go and work in multiple areas, which so that's why I said, so computers are kind of the topic agnostic. So as we said, so this is one of the extremely complex machine in our hand, and as programmers we want to write extremely complex code. So now we should have a strategy for that. Why do we need a strategy for doing that? One main reason is that humans have a limitation. Yeah. So as humans, we can't do multiple things at the same time. When I was young, I tried to study while I watch, when there is an exam, let's say an exam tomorrow, I tried to study while watching a cricket match which is happening. What will be the end result? You neither end up studying nor end up enjoying the cricket match. This is, I mean, and so this is similarly, it's quite difficult for us to do multiple things at the same time, and that's a limitation as a human being, right? So, but and programs are written by human beings, and if you ask a programmer to write a code which is going to help in launching a satellite, there are like hundreds of things, thousands of things one needs to keep track of, and no human can simultaneously keep track of all these things, right? So to write programs, one needs to have a strategy of compartmentalizing each of these, right? So so that people at one point of time should concentrate only on one area. Can we come up with such a what do you say, a design technology by which, so we have to look at only one area when when we write a program, we just think about one area, and then once I finish that, I go to another topic. So I go one by one, step by step, we go and cover the entire program. That's kind of the approach which programmers do. And so there are some design ideas for that, and we'll go through that, and then we'll go via that, and we'll get into data structures, right? That's the plan. What is first? Okay, do we already know of something to compartmentalize this, to kind of take like a small idea and make it into one package. Do you know something like that? Do you know that those are functions? You have seen functions, right? So that's one idea behind functions. Okay, so you just take off one function, like a function does one, let's say one activity, right? One thing, and you make that one activity into a function, and then you can just call that function anytime you want. The only thing you need to check is, okay, if that you need to check it once whether this function is working correctly, and if you have checked that, you have done that check, then you are all right, because now you can use that function all the time. So that's one way you could compartmentalize. Then once you have written that function, you can keep it aside. No need to think about it at all. No need to think how that function was, how the that what are the components of the function, what is inside that function. No need to worry about this thing. That's one of the idea which we have used. Right? So let me try to elaborate on it. Why are functions important? Okay, so let's think the following scenario. You want to write a big code, right? A large program, and there are some bugs in the program. Now, what could go wrong if and now you need to, there are bugs in the program, and you are interested in finding out that bug. Okay, and we'll try to see what can go wrong. So let's say you have written that program with no functions. Okay, so there are no functions. It's a large code with no functions, and there is a bug in the program, and you're interested in detecting it. What could go wrong? So the one simple way to see this is the following way. Let me just draw that. So these are my lines of code. There are 1, 2 up to n lines of code, and somewhere some line is wrong, right? That's why we have an error. Now, the way we have written this program with no functions, it's the case that any line can be affecting any other line, right? So if you change a line, line number 2, it could be affecting any other line, line 10, line 20, or line 1 million. So there is no control on it. So in that case, how many interactions are there? How many different interactions are possible in such a scenario? So the number of, what do I mean by interaction? A change in one line can affect other lines. How many different, what are the possible number of interactions in this setting? Okay. So what is the answer? Do you know the answer? It's component or X question I am asking. So there are n lines, and we are saying that any line can affect any other line. In such a scenario, how many different interactions can happen? Okay, and the answer is n choose 2. Maybe you have seen it like this or like this, right? And what is n choose 2? It is n into, right, n into n minus 1 by 2. So these many interactions are possible. So this is approximately n square. So let me just call it n square. So if there are n lines, so this is a little bit less than n square by 2. Okay, but I am going to call it n square. So if there are n lines of code, around n squared number of interactions can happen, right? And so this becomes huge, because why is this huge? Because let's say your program has 10 lines. So how many interactions are possible? 10 square, 100. So this is n and number of interactions. Okay, so if it's 10 lines, you have 100 interactions. If you have, let's say, 1000 lines, you have 10 raised to 6 interactions. Okay, so already it's 10 lakh. And if you have something um, like a crore, 1 crore, which is 10 raised to 7, then you have 10 raised to 14 interactions, right? So an operating system might be something around this, 1 crore. So there are 10 raised to 14 interactions. This is huge, and as you could see, the graph of this, right, let me just draw. So this is n. So with time, this n square increases. The number of interactions increases very fast as n grows because it's squaring all the time. On the other hand, okay, this is linear. And this is n square, and it's going to grow very fast here. So the point I'm trying to make is the bigger, the larger your code. If you don't, if you're just writing your program in one sequence, the number of interactions can be huge, and it's going to be extremely difficult to detect bugs because one small change in one line could have affected all the other lines, and if you change one place, you'll have to go and look at all other places, and then you maybe change there and change and look at then and all other places it interacts, etc. And it's going to take it's going to make your life a hell. So that's where functions come into a picture, right? So functions help us in that sense, because now, why do functions help? So when you have functions, you can think the same code as like, let's say 4 functions, and then there are interactions inside function, and then there are very few interactions, like some weak interactions between those functions. Okay, so then you are not going to have n square number of interactions, but much lesser, because each function, even if you assume inside each function all lines interact, even then the between function interactions are reduced. So this is one fundamental way to think on how to write computer programs. Okay, it's not about functions or anything. It's about compartmentalizing, making things into like these small packets, right? So I make so in this case it's a function. I make it into a small packet of function, and each function we keep it separate, and then we work with it. And so all big programs, you have to think along making it into such small packets. And that's one of the fundamental way to think on how to write large computer programs. And most of what you will see is basically on this. Okay. So most of this on this data structures, algorithms, etc., is basically on how to deal with large data. Okay, if you have a small data, that's not the issue. The issue is that when things are huge, when things are large, what can you do? So this is usually the way we'll have to think, okay, when we go forward. So this is one. So one property which we are trying to now see is when you have a large code, how do you organize your data? Organize your program. That's what we are trying to see here. And now, so this is how most complex systems in the world work. You compartmentalize, you package things into different parts. And for example, our human body it's like that. You have a heart, you have a brain, you have a lungs, etc., which deals with different ideas. The human society is also built on those ideas. Like I mean, the doctors treat patients, and I don't know how to treat someone is sick. I don't know how to treat someone, but there are specialized people who knows to treat that person. And what do you say? So if a war breaks out, there's an army which deals with the scenario. I don't know what to do in that case. So because that's not my expertise. the point I am trying to make is that even our human society, etc., are also built on along the same lines. So this is one. So the main takeaway from this lecture is that when you have complex systems, complex things, you need to organize things much better. You need to have an idea of you need to think about how to organize your program, your code, etc. And that will be the next few lectures. You'll see a few things going forward. Thank you.